Thursday, May 5th, 2022, and we are live. The calling number is 313-778-7600 is the calling number if you have a question or comment. Welcome to the African History Network show right here on 910 a.m. Superstation, the Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Thursday, May 5th, 2022. It is Cinco de Mayo. We're going to talk some about the history of Cinco de Mayo and the African connection as well, the anti-slavery connection of Cinco de Mayo and Afro-Mexicans. We're going to deal with some of that history on today's show. We have an update on the story from the story we covered yesterday dealing with the attack on Dave Chappelle that took place Tuesday night. Okay. And we have some information on that and the suspect that has been arrested and what that suspect is going to be charged with. The suspect is not going to be charged with felony charges. Isaiah Lee is not going to be charged with felony charges. So we have an update on that and what the district attorney is going to charge him with. Then also I saw a post from my friend Dr. Greg Carr on Twitter today, and dealing with Cinco de Mayo and dealing with the African roots of Cinco de Mayo. Now, you know, I've done a show dealing with the history of the Mexican-American War and Mexico's anti-slavery history, okay, and Mexico abolishing slavery even before the U.S. abolished slavery. Mexico abolished slavery in 1829. Vicente Guerrero is the second president of Mexico, and he's of African ancestry. He was Afro-Mexican. He was a former slave, Vicente Guerrero, and he was the first president of African descent in North America. So there was a post from the Zen Education Project today dealing with rethinking Cinco de Mayo, and it quoted Dr. Greg Carr. We posted this on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network. So if you don't follow us, you definitely want to follow us there. Turn on live notifications so you know when we go live also at the African History Network. So there was a post that Dr. Greg Carr did, who's chair of the Afro-American Studies Department at Howard University. I've interviewed him a number of times also, and he's a panelist on Roland Martin Unfiltered on Thursdays. I'm a panelist on Friday, so I'll be back on the show on Friday. But his post was picked up by the Zen Education Project, and his post makes the connection to between Africans and Mexicans, okay, between Africans and Mexicans. So if we look here quickly at what I posted on our Facebook fan page, the African History Network, it says Howard University professor Dr. Greg Carr tweeted, quote, on Cinco de Mayo, remember Battle of Puebla and Mexico's anti-slavery roots and Black and brown unity and resistance to settler colonialism. The holiday marks the fact that on this day, May 5th in 1862, Mexico struck a blow against the invaders, against the French. Okay, so Cinco de Mayo is not Mexico's Independence Day. Mexico's Independence Day is September 16th, which was September 16th, 1816. September 1810, I should say, September 16th, 1810 was Mexico's Independence Day. The Battle of Puebla was a war between Mexico and the French. And this battle here is going to inspire the Union during the Civil War, 1862, second year of the Civil War. And this fight between 2,000 Mexican troops and 6,000 French troops is going to give inspiration to the Union Army here in the U.S. fighting in the Civil War against the Confederacy, fighting in the Civil War against the South. And you're going to have some Afro-Mexicans who are fighting on behalf of Mexico as well. Okay, so we're going to deal with some of this history here, and we're going to deal with the forgotten anti-slavery history of Cinco de Mayo, the African connection, but also because of this Battle of Puebla that the Mexicans win. Now they're going to end up losing the war eventually to the French. And they're fighting against Napoleon Bonaparte III, who's the nephew of they're fighting against Napoleon III, who's the nephew of Napoleon Bonaparte. And we know Napoleon Bonaparte fights against the Haitians during the Haitian Revolution, right? And this is how you get the Louisiana Purchase of 1803. And the U.S. Buys 828,000 square miles of land from France, that land that was here, and land that belonged to Native Americans and Africans who were already here. The Haitians are fighting against the French and beating the hell out of the French. And France almost goes bankrupt fighting against the Haitians. So the U.S. buys 828,000 square miles of land for less than 3 cents an acre. It's about $15 million. This is known as the Louisiana Purchase of 1803 that was signed by President Thomas Jefferson. All right. So all this history is connected. So we're going to give you an update on what's going on with Dave Chappelle, but the majority of the show, we're going to talk about Cinco de Mayo's anti-slavery history and the African connection right here today on the African History Network show. Now, on the African History Network show, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right now it's correct your own behavior. What you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you and get away with is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you have been taught about yourself. And what you've been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. So when you control the radius of a man or woman's thoughts, you can control the circumference of his or her actions, because the mind can't do or teach what it doesn't know. All right, now we have the documentary Out of Darkness. Out of Darkness, Heavy is the Crown is available. The second installment is available right now at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. You've heard me talk about it this week, and it documentary just came out, and it deals with the African origins of the major world religions, the African origins of the major world religions. Is available right now at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. And we also have a bundle pack where you can get Heavy is the Crown, some bonus DVDs from me, and you'll get enrolled in my 10-week online history class, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, Understand the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. We have a bundle pack for $120 that includes all of that. Okay, that's at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. We'll give you more information about that as well. So this is a fantastic documentary. Professor James Small is in it. One of my teachers, Professor Kabahaya Watha Kamene, another one of my teachers, is in the documentary. Tony Browder and others. Okay, Heavy is the Crown from director Amadeus Christ. We're going to get Amadeus back on the show as well. I've interviewed him before, and we've done a screening of his first documentary together also. So we're going to give you some more information about that. But Heavy is the Crown is available right now at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Okay, so if I want to get into this first story here before we come up on the break. So ABC Channel 7 out of Los Angeles had this update. Dave Chappelle attacked suspect is now facing 4 misdemeanor charges after DA declines felony prosecution. Let's go to clip number 1, please, Jalen. Jalen's sitting there for Shakita tonight. Jalen's usually my board operator on Sunday, but he's here tonight. So let's go with clip number 1, Jalen.
Just in, the LA City Attorney has filed charges against the man accused of attacking Dave Chappelle on stage at the Hollywood Bowl. Those charges include battery and possession of a weapon with intent to assault. This comes after the LA County DA declined to bring felony charges, instead charging a misdemeanor. Eyewitness News reporter Leo Stallworth with more.
Since the violence at the Oscars, the world-class Laugh Factory in Hollywood has stepped up security measures, and they believe the safety protocols in place will prevent anything near what happened at the Hollywood Bowl.
Typically, we've always had 2 security guards, one outside letting people in, kind of checking them out visually, and then 1 person inside. But over the last few weeks, we've added 3 more security guards.
The Comedy Club is the safest place and the safest of spaces, not only for the comedian, but for the audience as well.
23-year-old Isaiah Lee, the man accused of rushing onto the stage at the Hollywood Bowl Tuesday night and attacking Dave Chappelle, will not face felony charges. Comedians we talked to are disappointed.
Yeah, I'm outraged. How is this person not being charged with a felony after clearly attacking Dave Chappelle with intent and a deadly weapon on his person in front of 20,000 witnesses?
Lee was arrested for assault with a deadly weapon for the attack on Chappelle. Police releasing this photo of the weapon they found on Lee, a knife shaped like a gun. It remains unclear what motivated Lee to run onto the stage. Tyron Bangastri says since the Will Smith-Chris Rock slap at the Oscars, he and other comedians have been on guard.
Having the biggest movie star in the world do something to a comedian of that nature, unfortunately, empowers other people to think they should and could do the same. And trust me, they can't.
Tyron says he was on the front row for Dave Chappelle's performance at the Hollywood Bowl and was shocked and horrified to see Lee rush the stage and tackle the comedian. Tyron adds he'd like to see Will Smith do more to denounce any violence targeting comedians.
As Will Smith, he should be much more vigilant in expressing his regret for what he did. And I know there's a lot of concerns on his part for his personal liability, but this goes beyond that. This is about public safety and public.
I want to make a move. Paramount is going to come crashing down.
All right. We'll continue to the other side of the break. You listen to the African History Network show right here on 10 a.m. the Superstation of Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. Stand by, back from break in 4 minutes. Stand by. Stand by, back from break in 4 minutes. Share this broadcast on your social media platforms. Invite your friends to tune in also. Stand by. How's everybody doing today? Chappelle. Okay, here's a picture of the replica. Isaiah Lee had a replica of a gun, and it had a blade attached to appears the barrel of the gun. Stand by, back from break in 2 minutes. Okay, everybody, share this broadcast on your social media platforms. Give us a thumbs up, give us a heart, give us a like on this broadcast. We'll continue this another side of the break. Then we'll talk about Cinco de Mayo and Cinco de Mayo's anti-slavery roots and the African connection. Back from break in 1 minute. Okay, you can support the African History Network, $ the AHN show through Cash App, $ the AHN show through Cash App, also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN show. Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 10 a.m. the Superstation, the Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. Okay, the call-in number is 313-778-7600, 313-778 7600 is the call-in number if you have a question or comment. So right before the break, we were dealing with this update to the story out of LA. Was that the end of the clip, Jalen? Right before the break that we were sharing. We were dealing with the update to this story here from ABC Channel 7 out of Los Angeles, KABC out of Los Angeles, dealing with this deals with the attack on Dave Chappelle that took place Tuesday night. I think it was Tuesday night. Yeah, Tuesday night. He was performing. Okay, we talked about this on yesterday's show. So the armed man who was accused of attacking Dave Chappelle on stage at the Hollywood Bowl is now facing several misdemeanor charges related to the incident. Earlier on Thursday, May 5th, the Los Angeles District Attorney's Office announced 23-year-old Isaiah Lee won't face any felony charges. What's it like having Xfinity internet? I hate it when these clips play, and I'm trying to do this here. Clips just start playing. I hate it when they do this. But he won't face any felony charges. Hold on. Can you? What's it like having Xfinity internet? It's beyond gig speed. Jalen, can you hear me? Why is this playing? Jalen. I'm not sure why the music is playing. I'm here, Jalen. I'm not sure why Snap I've got the powers playing. But okay, I'm here. All right, so I'm trying to pull this article up. The audio in the article from KABC just started playing. I had it up here on the screen. So earlier on Thursday, the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office announced 23-year-old Isaiah Lee won't face any felony charges and referred the case to the LA City Attorney, who only handles misdemeanors. Okay, referred it to the LA City Attorney, who only handles misdemeanors. Lee has been charged with battery, possession of a weapon with intent to assault, and 2 charges related to interfering with the performer. Okay, and 2 charges related to interfering with the performer. Quote, this alleged attack has got to have consequences, said LA City Attorney Mike Feuer, F-E-U-E-R, in a video message. He said, quote, my office takes protecting public safety extremely seriously, and we're going to vigorously prosecute this case. My office takes protecting public safety extremely seriously, and we're going to vigorously prosecute this case. Now, Lee was arrested for assault with a deadly weapon shortly after tackling comedian Dave Chappelle Tuesday night, May 3rd, 2022. He's being held on $30,000 bail. It's unclear what motivated Isaiah Lee, 23 years old, to run onto the stage. County prosecutors determined that while criminal conduct occurred, quote, this evidence as presented did not constitute felony conduct. Okay, county prosecutors determined that while criminal conduct occurred, quote, the evidence as presented did not constitute felony conduct, end quote. Now, police said Lee was armed with a replica of a handgun when he ran onto the stage and tackled Dave Chappelle. And we've shown you the actual replica of a handgun that was confiscated, and it had a blade attached to what appears to be the barrel of the handgun. It looks like about a 3-inch blade. Now, police said that Isaiah Lee, 23 years old, was armed with a replica of a handgun with a replica handgun dash knife when he ran onto the stage and tackled Dave Chappelle. Witness video shows Chappelle falling back, but he managed to quickly free himself as security rushed onto the stage to grab the attacker. According to ABC News sources, LA County prosecutors chose not to move forward with felony charges because Isaiah Lee was not brandishing the knife. They say Isaiah Lee was not brandishing the knife. He reportedly had it in some sort of bag. Now, exclusive footage from Air 7 high definition HD ABC 7 KABC, the local affiliate there in Los Angeles. Air 7 HD captured the attacker on a gurney, and he was as he was being loaded into an ambulance to be taken to the hospital for unspecified injuries. All right, so it appears that I read some different reports on this. It appears he has a shoulder injury, at least one shoulder injury, but he was bleeding from the face. So, like I said, on yesterday's show, I don't think he's gonna do that again. Quote, the replica handgun, which contained a knife blade, as we showed you, was recovered and booked as evidence, police said in a statement. Now, a spokesperson for Dave Chappelle issued a statement on Wednesday, May 4th, calling the incident, quote, unfortunate and unsettling. Unfortunate and unsettling, but saying he refuses to let it overshadow the record-breaking performance at the Hollywood Bowl. She noted, the spokesperson for Dave Chappelle, she noted that the comedian continued with his show and worked with Jamie Foxx and Chris Rock to help calm the crowd with humor. He is cooperating with the police investigation into the incident. Spokesperson Carla Sims' statement reads, quote, Dave Chappelle celebrated 4 nights of comedy and music, setting record-breaking sales for a comedian at the Hollywood Bowl. This run ties Chappelle with Monty Python. Monty Python, you remember the Monty Python show, the variety show, the guys from the UK, Monty Python, for the most headlined shows for any comedian at the Hollywood Bowl, reaching 70,000 fans of diverse backgrounds, And I'm going to try to, we're going to try to pull up, let's see here. Okay, let's pull up this piece here from CNN, because I don't think CNN is going to have a video clip with audio blaring like KABC does. I hate it when I know they have to make money off of ads, but that makes people not want to read these articles, especially if they're at work. Then the stuff just starts blaring. Okay, so if we look at this article here from CNN.com, also from Thursday, May 5th, 2022, Dave Chappelle's alleged attacker will not face felony charges after DA declines case. So they have, I think in this piece here, they have a statement from, I think they have a statement in here from also from Carla Sims as well. We're going to try to look at this here. Okay, we've got that. Let's scroll down here. Okay. So let me see if we have a statement. All right. A representative for Dave Chappelle released a statement Wednesday, quote, as unfortunate and unsettling as the incident was, Dave Chappelle went on with the show, Carla Sims said, Chappelle's representative. She said in a statement to CNN, Jamie Foxx and Chris Rock helped calm the crowd with humor before Dave Chappelle introduced the last and featured musical guest for the evening, end quote. Carla Sims went on to say Dave Chappelle is fully cooperating with the police investigation of the incident. Okay, Dave Chappelle was performing at the bowl, at the Hollywood Bowl, at Netflix is a Joke, the festival. Netflix is a Joke, the festival. Quote, we care deeply about the safety of creators, and we strongly defend the right of stand-up comedians to perform on stage without fear of violence, a Netflix spokesperson told CNN in a statement on Wednesday, May 4th. Okay, so you can check out this. Let me see. to have and there's a updated statement, I think, from Carla Sims. It looks like, because the piece from KABC Channel 7 has the another statement from Carla Sims also. But check out this article from CNN.com, especially if you're at work, because then the audio won't start blasting, okay, which is really annoying. So Carla Sims went on to say, quote, Dave Chappelle celebrated 4 nights of comedy and music, setting record-breaking sales for a comedian. Okay, this run ties Dave Chappelle with Monty Python for the most headline shows by any comedian at the Hollywood Bowl, reaching 70,000 fans of diverse backgrounds during the first Netflix is a Joke, the festival, and he refuses to allow last night's incident to overshadow the magic of this historic moment. Okay, he refuses to allow last night's incident to overshadow the magic of this historic moment. Okay, as unfortunate and unsettling as this incident was, Chappelle went on with the show. Jamie Foxx and Chris Rock helped calm the crowd with humor before Dave Chappelle introduced the last and featured musical guest for the evening, hip-hop artist Yassine Bey, who used to be Mos Def, and Talib Kweli, aka Black Star, who performed music from their new album, the first in nearly 24 years, which was released on Luminary. Other special comedic guests last night included Earthquake, Leslie Jones, Jeff Ross, Sebastian John Stewart, and Michael Wolff. All right, we're coming up against the break. Listen to the African History Network show. When we come back, we're going to talk about Cinco de Mayo's anti-slavery history and the Africa connection. 9:10 a.m. Superstation WFDF. We'll be back in a few minutes. Stand by. Back from break in 4 minutes. Stand by. Back from break in 4 minutes. Share this broadcast on social media platforms. Invite your friends to tune in also. I have to get ready for this next segment. Stand by, everybody. Back from break in 3 minutes. Back from break in 2 minutes. Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM Superstation, Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Thursday, May 5th, 2022. It is Cinco de Mayo. And we're going to talk about some of that history in just a second here. Be sure to visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. We have the new documentary from director Amadeus Christ, Heavy is the Crown. It's in the Out of Darkness series, Heavy is the Crown. And this is we have it on DVD. So it's $25. Heavy is the Crown deals with the African origins of the major religions. You're going to get one free bonus lecture from me also when you order this from the African History Network. And we also have a bundle pack as well, where you get this documentary. You'll get some of my lectures as well, including a double lecture I did with Professor Kabahaya Watakamene, who's also in this documentary. And you'll get also enrolled in my 10-week online class, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Okay, so next class meets Saturday, May 7th. We have a special bundle for $120 where you get the Heavy is the Crown documentary. You'll get some of my lectures and enrolled in this course. Or you can just order the documentary from AfricanHistoryNetwork.com by itself, which is $25. And you'll get a bonus lecture from me as well. Okay, so visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. And you can also email me at TheAHNShow@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com if you have any questions or if you run into any problems processing your order. Okay, TheAHNShow@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Or if you want to pay through Cash App, email us and we can take care of that for you as well. All right. I want to talk about Cinco de Mayo. So, as I said at the beginning of the show, I saw this post. I saw the post on Facebook from the Zen Education Project, and they cited a tweet from my friend Dr. Greg Carr. And we're co-panelists on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Greg was on Roland's show today. He's usually on Thursdays. I'm on Fridays. Greg Carr is the chair of the Afro-American Studies Department at Howard University. So I shared the post on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network. And here's what it says. And let me see if we can try to zoom in on this. Okay. Zoom in on it. There we go. And close this. I hate it when Facebook gives you notifications about people commenting on your posts. I hate that. But anyway, Howard University professor Dr. Greg Carr tweeted on hashtag Cinco de Mayo, remember Battle of Puebla and Mexico's anti-slavery roots and Black-Brown unity in resistance to settler colonialism. Black-Brown unity in resistance to settler colonialism. The holiday, Cinco de Mayo, marks the fact that on this day, May 5th, 1862, Mexico struck a blow against the invaders, who were the French. Mexico struck a blow against the invaders. Learn more, so end quote. So it goes on to say, this post from the Zen Education Project, learn more about Cinco de Mayo, and they have the section This Day in History, including the article Rethinking Cinco de Mayo, and they have the link below. So, and then a picture here is a painting of the Battle of Puebla, okay, in Mexico. So if we look at this post here, if we look at the article from the Zen Education Project, let's go to this here. I have it up. May 5th, Rethinking Cinco de Mayo, okay? So they have a piece here from Sudie Hoffman, Sudie Hoffman, S-U-D-I-E. And it says, I recently came across a flyer in an old backpack of my daughter's. Wanted committee chairs for this spring's Cinco de Mayo all school celebration. Wanted committee chairs for this spring's Cinco de Mayo all school celebration. Okay, now the flyer was replete with cultural, with cultural props, including a sombrero, cactus tree, donkey, taco, maracas, and chili peppers. Okay. And we're going to go to the phone lines before we go to the break. So caller, hold the line. Seeing this again brought back the moment when years earlier, my daughter had handed the flyer to me, and I thought, oh no, the local K-6 elementary schools Parent Teacher Student Association, PTSA, was sponsoring a stereotypical Mexican American event. A stereotypical Mexican American event. There were no Chicana or Chicano students, parents, or staff members who I was aware of in the school community, and I was concerned about the event's authenticity. I presumed the PTSA meant well and was attempting to provide a multicultural experience for students and families, but it seemed they were likely to get it wrong. It sounds like some African American History Month or Black History Month celebrations that I've heard about, you know, slave reenactments and picking cotton and all types of nonsense like this. Now, after making some inquiries, I was told the school wanted to celebrate Cinco de Mayo because it was Mexico's Independence Day. It's not Mexico's Independence Day. Mexico's Independence Day is September 16th, which took place in 1810. Okay. Cinco de Mayo is not Mexico's Independence Day, and Cinco de Mayo is celebrated more here in the U.S. than it's celebrated in Mexico. Okay. It's a minor holiday in Mexico. Now, however, Cinco de Mayo, the article goes on to say, Cinco de Mayo is actually Battle of Puebla Day, commemorating the defeat of Napoleon III in 1862 at the Battle of Puebla. Napoleon III is the nephew of Napoleon Bonaparte, who was fighting against the Haitians and got his behind kicked by the Haitians. Okay, during the Haitian Revolution, 1791 to 1803, and they declared their independence January 1st, 1804. Okay, now Mexico's Independence Day is September, September 16th, 1810. So she goes on to say, I wrote, this is Suddy Hoffman. I wrote the school and asked if they might consider canceling the event. I was concerned that the stereotypes associated with Chicana or Chicanos as fast food items, piñatas, sombreros, and syrups would be central to the event. Unfortunately, I was correct. Okay, so they have you can continue reading her piece on they have a link to continue reading her piece on rethinking Cinco de Mayo. Then it has the tweet from Dr. Greg Carr, chair of the Afro-American Studies Department at Howard University. All right. And Dr. Greg Carr once again says on hashtag Cinco de Mayo, remember Battle of Puebla and Mexico's anti-slavery roots, Black and brown unity in resistance to settler colonialism. The holiday marks the fact that on this day in 1862, Mexico struck a blow against the invaders. Okay, now Dr. Greg Carr suggests the following readings for further study on the topic. First, this book here, Black and Brown, African Americans and the Mexican Revolution, 1910 to 1920, by Dr. Gerald Horne. Okay, brilliant historian. I've talked to Dr. Gerald Horne before. He did a lecture at the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History here in Detroit, and we connected. Okay, Black and Brown, African Americans. Let's see if we can blow this up here. Black and Brown, African Americans, and the Mexican Revolution, 1910 to 1920. Okay, then the other book is let's see here. Okay, then the other, so this book here says the Mexican Revolution was a defining moment in the history of race relations, impacting both Mexican and African Americans, For Black Westerners, 1910 to 1920 did not represent the clear-cut promise of populist power, but a reordering of the complex social hierarchy, which had, since the 19th century, since the 1800s, granted them greater freedom in the borderlands than in the rest of the United States, because a lot of African Americans were moving out west. Okay, and then we know in 1879, you had the Black Exodus from African Americans leaving from Louisiana and Texas, especially. It's going to be about 6,000 of them going out to Kansas. Okay, after the 1878 statewide elections in Louisiana and Democrats take back control of the state legislatures and the governorship, you're going to have a lot of African Americans leaving Louisiana and Texas, going out looking for a better life and looking to own land in Kansas. That's called the Black Exodus of 1879. Then this other book Dr. Greg Carr recommends, Bearing Arms for His Majesty, the Free Colored Militia in Colonial Mexico. Bearing Arms for His Majesty, the Free Colored Militia in colonial Mexico. Now we're going to continue this on the other side of the break. On Sundays, I teach a online history class called From the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. If you like this type of information, you want to register for that class, because we deal with the Mexican-American War of 1846-1848, Louisiana Purchase of 1803, Missouri Compromise of 1820, which reorganizes the land that the U.S. gets from France. We deal with the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo of 1848 and how the U.S. gets California, Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, and Utah and Nevada as a result of the Mexican-American War. Compromise of 1850, which consists of 5 bills, and it consists of organizing the land that the U.S. gets from Mexico because of the Mexican-American War. And the 5th of those 5 bills was the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850, which intensifies the abolitionist movement and causes more runaway African slaves to run into Canada. You listen to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM Superstation Future Radio. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. Stand by, back from break in 4 minutes. Back from break in 4 minutes. Stand by. Okay, I'm going to post information here. You can register for my online classes. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Class number 2 is this Saturday, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. You can go back and watch it anytime. Okay. And we also have a bundle pack. I'm going to post a link here for Heavy is the Crown. If you want the bundle pack for Heavy is the Crown, the new documentary that deals with the African origins of the world religions, we have a bundle pack where you get enrolled in my online class, and you get some bonus lectures from me also. Okay. Stand by. Back from break in 3 minutes. Okay, we're going to go to, let's see, we're going to go to the article from Axios here next. Okay, I got to go to the, we have to go to the phone lines when we come back. Okay, we've got Linda and John. We'll go to the phone lines next. Let's see here. We've got the article from Axios. Axios.com. Stand by, everybody. Back from break in 2 minutes. Okay, let's close this here. Cigarettes. That's yesterday. Okay, so we're going to go here. Okay, we'll go here, and then we'll go to, we've got, I want to, let's see, I want to go to, okay, we can outline. Okay, we can just go skip right to this one here, dealing with Cinco de Mayo and the Civil War. Let's do that one. Back from break in 1 minute. Stand by. Okay, we've got this right here. Let's go, and we deal with Napoleon III. SoundCloud is trying to charge me. I don't even use SoundCloud. I need to cancel that subscription to SoundCloud. Republicans target polls on student loan. Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation, the Future Radio. Okay, right before the break, we were talking about Cinco de Mayo's anti-slavery history and the African connection. Before we continue, I want to go quickly to the phone lines here. Let's go to Linda, line 1, who's been waiting patiently. Linda, welcome to the African History Network show. Tell us where you're calling from, Linda.
Thank you, Mr. Imhotep, for taking my call.
Yes.
But what I wanted to ask you, since you're a historian, we know that they're rolling, roll off the track, but I won't be long.
Okay.
We know that they're rolling back Roe versus Wade.
Yes, 1973.
Mississippi, a model they're using.
Yes.
But what I wanted to find out, what states are trying to pass the law and bringing this old law back to ban interracial relationships? What are the states?
I don't know the states that are trying to do that. What it is you have this is an issue of fighting the issue between states' rights and the federal government. So I don't know the states offhand that are trying to do that. It'll probably be some southern states. What it is that a lot of the former Confederate states want certain things to be left up to the state as opposed to dictated by the federal government. Interracial marriage is one of them. I don't know exactly which states. I could probably guess Texas, Georgia, Alabama, Florida, these former Confederate states. They're going to probably find a way to push that. But it's dealing with interracial marriage. It's dealing with gay marriage as well, which was a U.S. Supreme Court case, 2015. But if you go back, the Civil War is partly fought over states' rights. And when you read the statements of secession from these former Confederate states, they talk about how central slavery is to their wealth. And they were talking about the federal government. They felt the federal government was overstepping their authority, and they feared that Lincoln was going to free the slaves. So you have this constant debate over states' rights versus the federal government when it comes to these southern states. This was part of the ruling in March 6, 1857, in the Dred Scott decision. A lot of people focus on Justice Taney's majority opinion that said that a black man has no rights, that a white man is bound to honor or respect. But what they miss is that in that ruling, the Supreme Court ruled that the Missouri Compromise of 1820 was unconstitutional. The Missouri Compromise of 1820 allowed Missouri to come into the state as a slaveholding state and allowed Maine to come into the Union as a free state. And they tried to keep a balance between slaveholding states and free states. Okay. So you had 11 slaveholding states and 11 free states. Well, what happened was in the Missouri Compromise, it also prohibited slavery in the rest of those territories that the U.S. got from the Louisiana Purchase of 1803. Well, the U.S. Supreme Court in 1857 in the Dred Scott decision also ruled that the Missouri Compromise was unconstitutional because they said that the federal government had no authority to dictate to the people living in those territories whether or not they could have slavery. Okay, so this is once again states' rights. This is a states' rights issue also. And part of the fight, when you look at desegregating the schools, Brown versus Board of Education, 1954, which overturned Plessy versus Ferguson in 1896, as well as the Civil Rights Act in 1964, is these former Confederate states saying the federal government is dictating to us whether or not we can have Jim Crow laws, whether or not we can desegregate schools. So there's been this fight over states' rights going back to really before the Civil War. Okay. All right. Give us a call tomorrow because we're out of time here, Linda. If you have any more questions, give us a call tomorrow. Okay.
Okay. Okay. But the states that's doing it right now, do you know the name of those states?
Well, they're not.
They do it right now.
They can't do it right now because it's still legal. It's still legal based upon Loving 1967 U.S. Supreme Court case, the Loving versus Virginia, I think it is. So they can't do it right now, but it's a lot of states. There was a lot of southern states that would love to do it.
Pass laws right now to do it.
Well, it's possible that they would challenge that U.S. Supreme Court decision. Okay, it's possible they would challenge that U.S. Supreme Court decision after they overturn Roe versus Wade. They've been trying to overturn, conservatives have been trying to overturn Roe versus Wade since 1973. And this is why it's important who you vote for president, because the president nominates Supreme Court justices. And it's important who you vote for the U.S. Senate, because the Supreme Court justices are confirmed by the U.S. Senate. So they've been stacking the deck with conservative. They've been stacking the deck with conservative Supreme Court justices, and Donald Trump got 3 of them confirmed with the help of a Republican Senate led by Mitch McConnell. Okay, I got to get this other call in, Linda, before we're out of time. I want to go to John.
Then, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Linda. Give us a call back tomorrow night. John, thanks for holding. We only got a couple minutes left. Go ahead with your question or comment, John.
Man, what a history lesson. You went through the whole history lesson.
Yes.
It's Mississippi and Florida and Texas. The chief one know the states. Mississippi, Texas, and Florida.
Okay. What about Mississippi? John, what about Mississippi, Texas, and Florida? What about them?
The lady want to know what they coming, what the people were talking about down there in Mississippi and talking that garbage and Texas and Florida. That's where it's coming from.
You're talking about John. You're talking about banning interracial marriage.
No.
That was her question. That was her question about banning.
The Supreme Court.
Yeah, that was her question. That was her
Court.
question about banning interracial marriage. Which states are trying to do that? Okay, go ahead quickly with your comment. We got a minute left. Go ahead with your comment.
You know what? You talking about how African Americans in Mexico, they were good friends. They fighted together. They went to war together. So I just want to thank you for educating the people about that and so forth.
Okay, John. All right, keep listening. Okay, if we have, let's see here. Okay, this piece right here from history.com. And once again, in my online class, I teach on Sundays from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. We get deep into all this history. So you can register for that class at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. How Cinco de Mayo helped prevent a Confederate victory in the Civil War. How Cinco de Mayo helped prevent a Confederate victory in the Civil War. When a small, scrappy Mexican force handed the French army a surprise defeat in 1862, the Confederacy was denied a potential ally. Okay, those watching on Facebook and YouTube, keep watching The African History Network on Facebook and Michael Imhotep on YouTube. We're going to keep going, break down this history lesson. We're out of time here on 9:10 a.m. Superstation WFDF. We'll have this some more on our Sunday show when we're on Sundays, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Be sure to register for my online history classes. You don't want to miss this weekend's classes. Visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Also, if you've taken any of my online courses in the past, email me at AHNShow@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. You get a 50% discount. And we have the new documentary, Heavy is the Crown, that deals with the African origins of the major religions. Thanks for listening to the African History Network show right here on 9:10 a.m. Superstation WFDF. Right now, it's correct your own behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. We'll talk to you next time. Peace. All right, stand by. Let me close this out. Okay. All right. So we have that, and let me post a link here also for Out of Darkness also, and we've got the bundle pack as well. Okay, so this is the link here for Out of Darkness at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. I was able to set all this up today. It's been a busy day, and let's see here. We've got Heavy is the Crown, the documentary Heavy is the Crown. And we've we've got the bundle pack here also. Is this it? Okay, yeah, we got the bundle pack. That's $120. So I'm gonna post a link here for the bundle pack, this second link, and it shows you what's in it, and you'll also get enrolled in my 10-week online history class that meets on Saturdays. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. So we have a special exclusive bundle pack only available from the African History Network. Okay, so check that out. We just posted a link, and that's at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. And if you have any questions, email me at TheAHNShow@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. All right, I want to get into, let's go first to this article from Axios.com. The Forgotten Anti-Slavery History of Cinco de Mayo. The Forgotten Anti-Slavery History of Cinco de Mayo. Now, I talked about this article in 2021, last year, in Cinco de Mayo. This came out May 5th, 2021. And this is by Russell Contreras, okay, for Axios.com. And you see this picture here of Cinco de Mayo celebration. And they perform with Mexica Ballet Folklorico performs during Cinco de Mayo festivities in downtown Los Angeles in 2011. Now, Cinco de Mayo is marketed in the U.S. as a fun holiday for getting drunk and eating tacos, but its origins are linked to California Latinos who saw a battle in Mexico in 1862 as a victory for abolition during the Civil War, abolishing slavery as a victory for abolition during the Civil War. So protests around the death of George Floyd, which brought Latino and African-American advocates together over the past year in 2021, over the previous year, 2020, this article's from 2021, have prompted a re-examination of this lesser-known piece of history, It's also important to note, and we've talked about this here before, that you had runaway African slaves who were running away from southern states like Texas, and they were running away into Mexico because Mexico was free territory, because Mexico abolished slavery in 1829. All right. And the descendants of those Africans who ran away are still in Mexico today. All right. And there's a settlement of them that celebrate Juneteenth also. All right. And I talk about this during in my lecture that I did dealing with the history of Juneteenth. We broke down that history as well. Okay. So I may be able to I'm gonna try to pull up the article that deals with that. Okay, I don't want to make this, my Juneteenth presentation is about 3 hours. I don't have time to do 3 hours right now, but it's an important piece of history. Okay, because a lot of people don't understand the African-Mexican connection, and at the same time, the half of the families who founded Los Angeles, California, were Afro-Mexicans. And that is, I was organizing these articles. So, okay, that's Biden-Harris administration. I've got it right here dealing with Juneteenth. I was trying to organize these articles here, organize this stuff here. Okay, so this one right here. There's this piece from history.com. I mean, actually, NBC News. There's this piece from NBC News. A family celebrates Juneteenth in Mexico where their Black ancestors first found freedom. A family celebrates Juneteenth in Mexico where their Black ancestors first found freedom. Once again, it's important to understand history, and the people's history and culture teaches them how to deal with the problems of the past and the present and the future. And Our history and culture gives us our foundation, gives us our values, our interests, and our principles. And this gives us a cultural paradigm to see reality through, and it influences our economic empowerment and political empowerment. So if we look very briefly here at this article from NBCnews.com from June 19th, 2021, okay, which is Juneteenth, June 19th, 2021, a family celebrates Juneteenth in Mexico, where their Black ancestors first found freedom. Corina Torralba Harrington, who is Mexican-American, is a descendant of Black Seminoles, formerly enslaved African people, formerly enslaved Blacks who lived among Native Americans in Florida before going to Mexico. We also know that Florida was free territory up until about 1821. It was Spanish territory, and it was free territory up until about 1821. So you had runaway African slaves running away from like Georgia and the surrounding states. Instead of going up north or trying to go to Canada or going up north, a lot of them were running to Florida and go live with the Seminole Indians. Okay, now let's see here. Rather than staying at home in Texas where Juneteenth was celebrated, Corina Torralba Harrington goes to her birthplace, Nacimiento de los Negros in Mexico. Nacimiento de los Negros in Mexico, where her ancestors built a community long before slavery fully ended in the United States. Celebrating Juneteenth in Texas, and we know Texas was used to belong to Mexico. Texas wins its independence from Mexico in 1836. Texas becomes a state in the Union in 1845, and they enter the Union as a slaveholding state. Okay, so celebrating Juneteenth in Texas as the day when Major General Gordon Granger declared slaves have been freed. He delivered General Order Number 3. Is, quote, not our celebration really, because our people freed themselves. Our people freed themselves, she said, referring to her Black Seminole ancestors, known as Negros Mascagos in Mexico. Negros Mascagos in Mexico. Negro is the word for Black in Spanish. It can mean black or black thing. They found freedom more than a decade before the 1863 Emancipation Proclamation, which did not free the enslaved Africans. They should say the 13th Amendment ratified December 6, 1865, when Georgia ratifies the 13th Amendment. The Emancipation Proclamation did not legally free the enslaved Africans, because when you go to loc.gov, which is the Library of Congress website, and actually read it, or you go to archives.gov, it clearly tells you that the slaves in the states of rebellion or territories of rebellion were free, but those who were in the border states, Maryland, Missouri, Kentucky, and Delaware, were still slaves. Okay, now the U.S. government had no authority to dictate to the Confederacy anything. They didn't have an authority to dictate that those slaves were free. Okay, so it's going to be the 13th Amendment that amends the U.S. Constitution to legally free the enslaved Africans. It's not the Emancipation Proclamation. And before Major General Gordon Granger enforced it in Texas on June 19th, 1865, and even after June 19th, he's going through different parts of Texas delivering General Order Number 3. He's backed up by 2,000 Union troops, many of them former slaves, to enforce General Order Number 3. You had to have a military to be able to enforce it. Okay, now here's a picture of Corina Torralba Harrington, who's of Mexican and African ancestry. Our celebration is a commemoration to all the people who were free on that day, Torralba said. And her Mexican hometown, June 19th, is called El Baile de los Negros. El Baile, B-A-I-L-E, El Baile de los Negros, the dance of the blacks, or El Dia del Negro, the day of the black. Okay. Like Torralba and her extended family, many Americans and Mexicans trace their heritage to enslaved blacks or enslaved African people whose quest to be free forced them to journey to what is now Florida, where they lived among Seminole Native Americans and sometimes intermarried, later going to Oklahoma. And Oklahoma, we know, was Indian territory. Oklahoma becomes a state in the Union in 1907, but the Choctaw, Chickasaw Creek, Cherokee, and Seminole Indians get pushed off their land in southeastern United States because of the Indian Removal Act of 1830. And when they go on the Trail of Tears over 1,000 miles into Oklahoma, they take their African slaves with them. So about a third of the people on the Trail of Tears were Africans, okay? And they were slaves of these five civilized, what Europeans call the five civilized tribes of Native Americans. Now, some people say, oh, they were servants instead of slaves. Well, what we do know is that because of the, after the Civil War ends in 1865, for all practical purposes, ends April 9th, 1865, when General Robert E. Lee surrenders to General Ulysses S. Grant at the Appomattox Courthouse in Virginia. We know that the Civil War is going to go on for another 16 months and officially come to an end in August of 1866, because you had smaller Confederate armies that were still functioning. Robert E. Lee's army of Virginia was the largest Confederate army. He surrenders, but there's still smaller Confederate armies, and the Union had to negotiate terms of surrender with these smaller Confederate armies. Okay, so it really officially comes to an end, the Civil War, in August of 1866. Now, Oklahoma becomes a state in the Union in 1907. Prior to that is going to be Indian Territory. When you deal with Tulsa, Oklahoma, Tulsa is founded in about 1834 by Creek Indians who get pushed off of their land in southeastern United States. And Tulsa comes from the Creek Indian word Tallahassee. And Tulsa has, even though people say Black Wall Street, North Tulsa was all black, it was predominantly majority black, but you still had a small percentage of Creek Indians that lived there, because it was Creek Indians that founded Tulsa, Oklahoma. All right. And then you're going to have some African Americans who lived in North Tulsa, where African Americans were segregated to. You're going to have some of them who are descendants of African slaves who were enslaved by Creek Indians, or descendants of those who Africans who intermarried with the Creek Indians also. And we know some of them are going to get land as well. Okay, this is why a lot of your early African landowners in North Tulsa, in the Greenwood district, in what becomes Black Wall Street, a lot of them are going to get land from the Black Freedmen Indian treaties of 1866 and the Dawes Allotment Act of 1887. So if we look here at what's the name of that article from 9 entrepreneurs who helped build Black Wall Street. Okay, 9 entrepreneurs who helped build Black Wall Street. So all this history is interconnected, interrelated. Okay, Mexico, African Americans, Tulsa, Oklahoma, Black Wall Street. This is why you have to understand a chronology of history. So if you take any of my online history classes, we go through and deal with a chronology of history. If you look at this article here from history.com, official website of the History Channel, May 14, 2021, 9 entrepreneurs who helped build Tulsa's Black Wall Street. They have a quote in here from Hannibal B. Johnson, who I've talked to before on Facebook. We're Facebook friends. He's the author. He's a historian and one of the top historians on the history of Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Black Wall Street. He's the author of the book, this one here on Black Wall Street that I have. One of the best books on the history of Black Wall Street, and he's African American, because you have some white people writing books on the history of Black Wall Street also. This was one of the first real history books on Black Wall Street, because this originally came out in 1998. Okay, this is one of the first real history books on Black Wall Street. There was one that came out earlier by, I think his name was Ron Wallace or something like that. I have that one from the early 90s. That was more of a fictitious account. I think the first 2 or 3 pages had some history, and then it was more of a fictitious account of Black Wall Street. This is one of the real first history books on the history of Black Wall Street. Black Wall Street from Riot to Renaissance in Tulsa's historic Greenwood District by Hannibal B. Johnson. So if you go back and watch any of the stories on the 100th commemoration of the Tulsa Race Massacre, June 1st, 1921, Hannibal B. Johnson was on all the TV channels. He was interviewed everywhere. All right. But quickly here, if we look at this article, Hannibal B. Johnson is quoted in this one from history.com. As more is learned about the Tulsa Race Massacre of 1921, including the discovery of mass graves, the stories of the African Americans who turned the city's Greenwood District into Black Wall Street are equally as revealing. Before a white mob decimated 35 blocks of a thriving community, African Americans had migrated to Tulsa. Pulling their resources and building wealth to create successful businesses amid Jim Crow discrimination. Okay, now, let's see here. Before the Greenwood District was established, African Americans came to Oklahoma in the mid-19th century as slaves of the 5 civilized tribes of Native Americans. Okay, this is on the Trail of Tears, the 5 civilized tribes of Native Americans, the term used for the Cherokee, Chickasaw, Choctaw, Creek, and Seminole Native American tribes, who were forced from their lands in the southeastern part of the United States, resettling in Oklahoma, then known as Indian Territory. After the Civil War, 1861 and 1865, for all practical purposes, under the terms of the treaties of the 1866, these African Americans were emancipated, with some integrating into the tribes, a relationship that would later provide freedmen, former slaves, the Black freedmen, with their own land. A relationship that would later provide freedmen with their own land from the Black Freedmen Indian Treaties of 1866 and the Dawes Allotment Act of 1887, DAWES, Dawes Allotment Act, named after Senator Henry L. Dawes of Massachusetts, which redistributed 138 million acres of land. It was supposed to go to Native Americans and African Americans, Black Indians. 2/3 of it went to white people. Quote, Hannibal B. Johnson, author of his new book, is Black Wall Street 100, and American City Grapples with Its Historical Racial Trauma. Hannibal B. Johnson says, quote, the relative wealth of some Black folks in Oklahoma comes from, in part through their connection to the tribes, the Native American tribes, and their land ownership. The relative wealth of some Black folks in Oklahoma comes in part through their connection to the tribes and their land ownership. Okay. The Dawes Act of 1887 authorized the government, the U.S. government, to divide tribal territories into allotments or land allotments for individual Native Americans, which included Black members of those Native American nations. Because of the Black Freedmen Indian Treaties of 1866, those former slaves got membership in these Native American tribes. As word spread that Indian Territory was a safe place for African Americans to settle between 1865 and 1920, more than 50 Black townships were founded in Oklahoma. Read the rest of this article here. 9 entrepreneurs who helped build Tulsa's Black Wall Street. Okay, now let's go back to Mexico. All right, let's go back to Mexico. Also, if you like this type of information, you support the African History Network, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN Show. This helps us keep doing the research and stay on the air, keep broadcasting, pay some of the bills, pay for these various services that I use to do the show and do research. We also have the information on the homepage of our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. We have the link there, and our official Cash App account, $ the AHN show, SHOW. So when you go to it, it shows my picture there, and it says $ the AHN show, SHOW. It says Michael, and shows my picture there. These other ones here are fake African History Network Cash App accounts. We have the link in the yellow PayPal donate button also. Okay, now let's continue. All right. So back to the we were talking about the article from NBC News dealing with the African-Mexican connection and Juneteenth. A family celebrates Juneteenth in Mexico where their Black ancestors first found freedom. Okay, so we're talking about Karina Taraba Harrington. It goes on to say, yet Taraba did not learn any of this history as a student in Texas. Okay, she said, growing up in school, I never heard of Juneteenth or, the history of the Black Seminoles in Florida, she said. Okay, and she talked about Africans, formerly enslaved Africans who go into Florida, where they lived among Seminole Native Americans and sometimes intermarried, later going to Oklahoma and finally to Mexico. So they went from Florida into Oklahoma and then into Mexico. All right. Now, generations later, she and her relatives journeyed to the past, unearthing their connection to the Black Seminole history that spans centuries, crosses borders, combines cultures, and is the story of a people's aching for survival and freedom, and is the story for a people's aching for survival and freedom. Okay. Let's see. A common question that I've just grown used to is, what are you? Because a lot of people, they look at me and they'll be like, are you Jamaican? Are you Dominican? Are you Ethiopian? Are you Black? Are you a Blasian, Black Asian? Are you Filipino? And this was Dina Rodriguez, the daughter of Karina Taraba. Ashley Rodriguez, 21, of Lubbock, Texas, is the daughter of Taraba's cousin, Dina Rodriguez. She says she never learned about the Black Seminole of Mexico in any of her history textbooks. She never learned about the Black Seminoles of Mexico in any of her history textbooks, but knowing her ancestors were freed slaves connects her to the present. Okay, read the rest of this article here from history.com. A family celebrates Juneteenth in Mexico where their Black ancestors first found freedom, and their descendants are still there. Those descendants of those runaway Africans are still there in Mexico. All right, now if we go back to the piece from Axios, okay, the article from Axios entitled "The Forgotten Anti-Slavery History of Cinco de Mayo." This is from May 5th, 2021, from Russell Contreras for Axios.com, AXIOS.com. Protests around the death of George Floyd, which, let's see here. Okay, protests around the death of George Floyd, which brought Latino and Black advocates together over the past year, have prompted a re-examination of this lesser-known piece of history. And let's see, okay, here. Cinco de Mayo commemorates the Battle of Puebla and the victory of Mexico's ragtag army, made up largely of indigenous soldiers, against the better equipped, trained French forces of Napoleon III, who was the nephew of Napoleon Bonaparte. Okay. And Napoleon Bonaparte, we know, fought against the Haitians during the Haitian Revolution. Now, Spanish language newspapers at the time showed Latinos in California were worried about Napoleon III's interest in helping the Confederacy, the traitors to the Union, the Confederacy, the Confederate States of America, Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, the traitors who violated Article 3, Section 3 of the U.S. Constitution and picked up arms against the Union, separated, formed the Confederate States of America because they wanted to maintain slavery, right? So Latinos in California were worried about Napoleon III's interest in helping the Confederacy, and they saw the win at the Battle of Puebla, May 5th, 1862, as a victory against slavery, because the Mexicans were fighting against the French. Now, this diverse coalition of Latinos from Mexico, Central America, and South America had been brought to California because of the gold rush of 1849, okay, basically the year after the U.S. gets California from Mexico as a result of the Mexican-American War and the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo of 1848, which ends the Mexican-American War. And Mexico gets California, Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, Utah, and Nevada, that territory that makes up those 6 states from Mexico for $15 million. Mexico loses about a third of its territory as a result of the Mexican-American War ending in that treaty. So the diverse coalition of Latinos from Mexico, Central America, and South America had been brought to California because of the gold rush and were outspoken anti-slavery advocates. Now, David Hayes Bautista, author of the book El Cinco de Mayo, An American Tradition, said for years, Latinos celebrated the holiday with parades of people, Cinco de Mayo, with parades of people dressed in Civil War uniforms, U.S. Civil War uniforms, and gave speeches about how the Battle of Puebla was part of a larger struggle for abolishing slavery. How the Battle of Puebla, the Mexicans fighting against the French, was part of a larger struggle for the abolition of slavery. Now, the Mexican Revolution in the 1910s sparked a new wave of migration to the United States, and Cinco de Mayo's abolitionist connections faded. And Americans are very ignorant of history also. That's another thing. Americans, regardless of race, are very ignorant of history. Now, Mexican Americans use the holiday as a David versus Goliath story of indigenous people beating a European force as inspiration for fighting for civil rights. By the 1980s, corporations and beer companies had co-opted Cinco de Mayo as a way to reach the growing U.S. Hispanic market. Boxing promoters also used the weekend of Cinco de Mayo, near Cinco de Mayo, to host big fights featuring popular Latino boxers of the moment. Now, Cinco de Mayo is not Mexico's Independence Day, as we said. That's September 16th, which commemorates September 16th, 1810, okay, which is Mexico's Independence Day. So you can read the rest of this piece here from Axios.com, The Forgotten Anti-Slavery History of Cinco de Mayo, the Forgotten Anti-Slavery History of Cinco de Mayo. Now, if we go and look at this piece here from history.com, this one here, how Cinco de Mayo helped prevent a Confederate victory in the Civil War. So a lot of times when we deal with this history, we don't deal with how Mexico is connected to the anti-slavery movement and connected to the Civil War and different things like this. This is why it's important to understand history, okay? Also, during the 1930s, you had about 1.8 million Mexican Americans who are going to be deported from the U.S., deported back to Mexico, and this is during the Great Depression. And also the, not to make this long and drawn out because I don't have that type of time, but the reason why marijuana was made illegal in 1937, and we talked about this here on this show before, and we'll deal with this some in my online class from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968, because this is really important. The reason why marijuana was made illegal in 1937 is largely because of Harry J. Anslinger, who was the first chairman of the Federal Bureau of Narcotics, and the hatred that the U.S. had for Mexicans, which goes back to the Mexican-American War of 1846 to 1848. But if we look at this piece quickly here, this deals with Mexicans being deported. Let's see. U.S. deported 1.8 million Mexicans. Let me see. Can we pull this up here? This is from history.com. Okay, hold on. Let me get this one here. That's dealing with the Mexican Revolution. I don't want that one. I want the one dealing with this one right here. U.S. deported 1 million of its own citizens to Mexico during the Great Depression. We've talked about this before. This is understanding how all this history comes together. And the hatred that the U.S. and that white people here in the U.S. had for Mexican Americans also end up hurting African Americans. And that's why marijuana was made illegal in 1937. So this is all during the Great Depression. This follows the stock market crash of October 1929. And we know President Herbert Hoover is president. He's anti-African. President Herbert Hoover is president then. Herbert Hoover wins the 1928 presidential election. Republicans use the Southern strategy to the Lily White movement in 1928 to appeal to Southern segregationist Democrats in 5 former Confederate states to get them to vote for Herbert Hoover as president. And Republicans, this deals with why African Americans switched from the Republican Party to the Democratic Party, is not because of the Civil Rights Act in 1964, the Voting Rights Act in 1965. You have to go back 40 years before that to the Lily White movement in 1928, when we were being pushed out of the Republican Party by Republicans who started ignoring the needs and concerns of African Americans and ignoring the rise of the Ku Klux Klan, which was rejuvenated in 1915 by the Reverend William Joseph Simmons after he sees the movie The Birth of a Nation. The Reverend William Joseph Simmons rejuvenates the Ku Klux Klan in 1915. This is the second incarnation of the Ku Klux Klan. And they have both Democrats and Republicans as members of the second incarnation of the Ku Klux Klan. But this article right here, the U.S. deported 1 million of its own citizens during the Great Depression. The U.S. deported 1 million of its own citizens to Mexico during the Great Depression. Up to 1.8 million people of Mexican descent, most of them American-born, were rounded up in informal raids and deported in an effort to reserve jobs for white people. Because Herbert Hoover had this campaign called American Jobs for Real Americans, something like this. And they were saying that, oh, the Mexicans are taking white people's jobs. About 60% of the people they deported back to Mexico were born here legally. Okay, so you got to understand this history. You got to go back and look at Mexican and American and U.S. relations going back something like 150 years to understand the tensions between the U.S. and Mexico today, or how some white people, especially in these former Confederate states, this tension between them and Mexicans. And at the same time, it's like a lot of those former Confederate states, a lot of that territory used to belong to Mexico. Okay, so you're dealing with people on stolen land and borrowed time, if you want to be honest. In the 1930s, the Los Angeles Welfare Department decided to start deporting hospital patients of Mexican descent. One of the patients was a woman with leprosy who was driven just over the border and left in Mexicali, Mexico. Others had tuberculosis, paralysis, mental illness, or problems related to old age, but that did not stop orderlies from carrying them out of medical institutions and sending them out of the country. These were the repatriation drives, a series of informal raids that took place around the United States during the Great Depression. So it starts with Herbert Hoover, okay, who only serves one term. He wins the 1928 presidency. These deportations are going to continue with President Franklin Roosevelt. Local governments and officials deported up to 1.8 million people to Mexico, according to research conducted by Joseph Dunn, a former California state senator. Joseph Dunn estimates around 60% of these people were actually American citizens, many of them born in the United States to first-generation immigrants. For these citizens, deportation was not repatriation; it was exile from their country, because they had never been they had never been to Mexico. They were born here in the U.S. They were U.S. citizens. The logic behind these raids was that Mexican immigrants were supposedly using now pay attention to this. This is the same language a lot of these white supremacists use today. The very same language. The logic behind these raids was that Mexican immigrants were supposedly using resources and working jobs that should go to white Americans affected by the Great Depression. These deportations happened not only in border states like California and Texas, but also in places like Michigan, Colorado, Illinois, Ohio, and New York. In 2003, a Detroit-born U.S. citizen named Jose Lopez testified before a California legislative committee about his family's 1931 deportation to Michoacan, a state in western Mexico. Now, what they leave out when they say, oh, Mexicans taking the jobs, things like this, what they leave out is that those people that they're deporting contribute to the GDP of this country through consumption, through the products and services they produce, one, but also through spending the money that they make actually grows the economy. And this is what economists will tell you. When you actually talk to economists and know what the hell they're talking about, they actually help the economy grow. So as I tell people, okay, if you don't want undocumented immigrants here, stop eating food that you did not grow yourself. Because most likely, if you eat food you did not grow yourself, at some point, an undocumented immigrant was involved in the process of making that food that you eat. So if you don't want undocumented immigrants, stop eating food that you did not grow yourself. At the same time, you have to go after the corporations that exploit the labor of undocumented immigrants. Oftentimes, they get left off the hook. You attack the people. See, white supremacy pits groups of oppressed people against one another to keep fighting one another, so the 1% stays in power. And then when you deal with, so you have to go study U.S. relations, U.S. policies to Mexico and Central American countries going back 50 years, sometimes 100 years, because a lot of the conditions that people are fleeing coming from Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, things like this, a lot of those conditions they're fleeing from, the U.S. helped create those conditions because of their policies to those Central American countries. So you really have to understand history, especially when you deal with Mexico, the last 150 years of history, especially when you deal with Mexico, but also a lot of these other countries. There was a article from Vox.com that deals with, I think this is one from Vox. You see the Vox or Vice. And it deals with the exploitation of Central American countries, just like the U.S. exploited Haiti, okay? Or just like Puerto Rico, and Puerto Rico becomes U.S. territory as a result of the Spanish-American War of 1898, because Puerto Rico was conquered by Columbus, about 1492, 1494. Well, Puerto Rico becomes a territory of the U.S. as a result of the Spanish-American War of 1898, where Cuba is fighting against Spain for their independence. And Cuba was conquered by Christopher Columbus. So there's an article from Vice.com. This one right here. Now, I encourage everybody to read. This is why it's important to understand like the last 500 years of history and understand this chronology of this history. Okay, because all this is connected together. Let's see. If we go look at, let me pull up. I want to show you what Columbus, one of his 4 voyages. It's important to understand this because what happened to Puerto Rico, Honduras, Hispaniola, okay, the Spanish island Hispaniola, which was originally called Quesaquea, but Hispaniola in the western third of the island of Hispaniola is where Haiti is. The Spanish called it Santo Domingo. The French, when they take over the western third in 1697 from the Spanish, they call it Saint Dominique. Okay. And this is going to become Haiti, which comes from Haiti, okay, which comes from the Taino word Haiti. If we look here at, which I want this one right here from Vice.com. Okay, can we close this ad out? This article here. I encourage everybody to read. The violence Central American migrants are fleeing was stoked by the U.S. The violence Central American migrants are fleeing was stoked by the U.S. We're still dealing with the aftermath of atrocities committed by U.S. allies in Central America during the Cold War. This is why you have to understand history and politics. Okay, this is from June 28, 2018, and you see Ronald Reagan, former President Ronald Reagan, in 1986, holding up a shirt that says "Stop Communism, Central America." Okay, and let me see if I can just go right to where I want it because I don't have my notes in front of me for this one here. So, Northern Triangle, El Salvador. As courts, law enforcement, and the Trump administration continue to sort out what to do with the steady stream of migrants either crossing the southern border illegally or seeking asylum, the roots of the current misery are often forgotten. The roots of the current misery are often forgotten. The desperate border crossers often come from Central America's Northern Triangle, El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras, and are fleeing high homicide rates and violence in these countries. But the instability did not arise in a vacuum. The instability did not arise in a vacuum. Many historians and policy experts are quick to point out that much of the troubles in Central America were created or at least helped by the U.S. government's interference in those countries going back decades. Okay. In other words, the foreign policy of the past has profoundly shaped the present immigration crisis. You look at Guatemala, the CIA helped overthrow the democratically elected government in Guatemala in, I think it was 62 or something like in the early 60s. Okay. Guatemala has never recovered from that. Hundreds of thousands of people were displaced in the 1980s, said Elizabeth Oglesby, an associate professor of Latin American studies at the University of Arizona. Quote, people were fleeing violence and massacres and political persecution that the United States was either funding directly or at the very minimum covering up and excusing. The U.S. government was either funding directly or at the very minimum covering up and excusing. Violence today in those countries, she said, is a directly legacy of U.S. involvement. Oglesby spoke to me from Guatemala, which even today is still feeling the cumulative effects of U.S. actions from over 50 years ago. But these countries have never recovered from being conquered by the Spanish over 500 years ago when they were conquered by Christopher Columbus. Cuba, Puerto Rico, Honduras, Panama, Haiti, Hispaniola, the Dominican Republic, all of that was conquered by Columbus. Bahamas, okay? That's all conquered by Columbus on behalf of the Spanish crown, King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella. In the 1950s, Guatemala attempted to end exploitative labor practices and give land to Mayan Indians in the highlands. The move, according to now unclassified or declassified, I guess you could say, now unclassified CIA documents, threatened U.S. interests like the United Fruit Company, which controlled a good portion of land in Guatemala. But instead of citing economic factors, many in the U.S. cried communism. Instead of citing economic factors, many in the U.S. cried communism, saying the labor reforms were a threat to democracy. Wisconsin Senator Alexander Wiley, chair of the Foreign Relations Committee, at the time said he believed that a, quote, communist octopus had used its tentacles to control events in Guatemala. In 1954, the CIA helped organize a military coup to overthrow Guatemala's democratically elected government and continued to train the Guatemalan military well into the 1970s. Guatemala has never recovered from that. The CIA in 1954 helped organize a military coup to overthrow Guatemala's democratically elected government. Quote, the war in Guatemala was really a genocide, Oglesby said, adding that an estimated 200,000 were killed in a subsequent 36-year-long civil war, which stretched from 1960 to 1996. This is a 36-year civil war in Guatemala after they were conquered by a demon named Christopher Columbus. Quote, the history is important because it went so far beyond anti-communism. The purpose was to destroy people's vision of the future. The purpose was to destroy people's vision of the future. It had a terrible impact on the country. Hundreds of thousands of people were displaced. Read the rest of this article here. The violence Central American migrants are fleeing was stoked by the U.S. In other words, you can also subtitle this article, "The Chickens Are Coming Home to Roost." You can subtitle that article, "The Chickens Are Coming Home to Roost." You reap what you sow. Okay, now back to Mexico. And I have to get out of here because I have a lot of work to do. Okay, that's Juneteenth. That's Mexico. I want to go to, we're going to go to this one right here. Okay. How Cinco de Mayo helped prevent, this article right here, how Cinco de Mayo helped prevent a Confederate victory in the Civil War. Okay. And once again, if you like this type of history, register for the online history classes I teach on Saturdays and Sundays because we get deep into this history. We do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. You can go back and watch it anytime. Okay. And we have a bundle pack where you can register for all three classes for $120. And that includes from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968, where we deal with the Mexican-American War. We get like really deep into this history. Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So, and we have the information right here on the homepage of our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Amongst all this other stuff, I'm in the process of building a new website that's more user friendly, but this is the one we have right now. So this helps to keep the lights on, okay, and the internet bill paid and all that other stuff, right? This class right here, class number 1 starts up Saturday, May 8th, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. You can go back and watch it anytime, okay? From the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. We start in 1803 with the Louisiana Purchase and the Haitian Revolution and deal with history chronologically through 1968, okay? So I just posted the link there. We have the information, and we have a bundle pack for $120. You can register for all 3 classes. If you've taken any of my online classes in the past, and I've been teaching these classes since 2017, from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, that's a new class I started teaching in 2021. But Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, I started teaching that in 2017. You can email us at TheAHNShow@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com if you have any questions about the classes. But also, if you've taken any of my classes in the past, you'll get a 50% discount. Okay, so email me, and we'll get you set up for that. Now, this right here, this is a really interesting history that's not really talked about a lot. And when you understand your history, you see how your history intersects with other people's history. And the history of African Americans needs to be taught in every school across the country, because the way you treat a people is largely based upon what you know about a people. What you know about a people is based upon what you've been taught about a people. So when people have a better understanding of your history, it causes them to have a better respect for you and your history, which influences how you're treated. Okay. And Dr. Carter G. Woodson, who created Negro History Week in 1926, said the history of African Americans need to be taught in every school across the country. Okay, because he understood that people were largely ignorant, especially African Americans, of the contributions we've made to this society. Now, let me see, where's that article? Where's that piece? Right here. There can be confusion over the origins of Cinco de Mayo. Some think it's a holiday celebrating Mexican independence from Spain. That's actually September 16th, 1810, or the 1810 Mexican Revolution, November 20th, or that it was dreamed up to sell more beer and guacamole. Cinco de Mayo actually marks the unlikely defeat of elite French forces, but an undermanned Mexican army in the Battle of Puebla on May 5th, 1862. In fact, the underdog Mexican victory may have played a part in preventing French Emperor Napoleon III, nephew of Napoleon Bonaparte. It may have played a part in preventing French Emperor Napoleon III from helping the Confederacy win the American Civil War. This deals with the anti-slavery connection, dealing with Cinco de Mayo and the Battle of Puebla, and Afro-Mexicans who were also fighting in that battle as well, and the U.S. Civil War going on in this country. Okay, now debts to France led to the Battle of Puebla. Debts to France led to the Battle of Puebla. The lead up to the battle began in 1860 when the Mexican government, bankrupt after decades of internal conflict, announced it was suspending debt payments to its European creditors for 2 years. Spain, the United Kingdom, and France did not like the delay and sent over joint forces in 1861 to collect on Mexico's debt. Okay, so they sent over some thugs to collect on the debt. These colonizers sent over thugs to Mexico to collect on the debt in 1861. Spain and the UK ended up cutting deals. Spain and the UK ended up cutting deals, but French Emperor Napoleon III, a nephew of Napoleon Bonaparte, had other plans. Okay, now this is French Emperor Napoleon III. Okay, Napoleon III figured if he could get his hands on Mexico, it could become the first colony in a new French stronghold in North America. U.S. President Abraham Lincoln was busy fighting the U.S. Civil War, so the Americans would not stand in Napoleon's way. Even better, with a French puppet government installed in Mexico City, Napoleon could provide guns to the Confederacy, the Confederate States of America. Napoleon III could provide guns to the Confederacy in exchange for Southern cotton produced by African slaves. And Southern cotton was a scarce commodity in Europe thanks to Union shipping blockades. Now, we know the whole Industrial Revolution starts in the 1790s around the Manchester, England area, and the largest crop in the Industrial Revolution was cotton that was largely grown by African slaves in Manchester, England, in the Manchester, England area, because they had not abolished slavery yet. That's going to be officially abolished in 1833 in Great Britain, in the Great Britain territories, 1833. We know the international transatlantic slave trade, Great Britain abolishes in 1807, which means bringing Africans into their territories to enslave them, but they're officially going to abolish slavery in 1833. So in early 1862, well-trained French forces under the confident command of General Charles de Lorenzez marched from the port city of Veracruz, Mexico, with the aim of capturing Mexico City. But on May 5th, the French took a surprise beating. May 5th, 1862, took a surprise beating at Puebla at the hands of Mexican General Ignacio Zaragoza and a ragtag group of enlisted volunteer troops. There's about 2,000 of them, okay, fighting against French forces of 6,000. The French army retreated to Veracruz, Mexico, to lick its wounds and would not return to take Puebla until a full year later in May of 1863. Now, some contend that the year-long delay of the French invasion gave President Abraham Lincoln's generals just enough time to win decisive Union victories before Napoleon III could provide upgraded artillery and munitions to the Confederacy. Okay, quote, by the time the French occupied Mexico City in June 1863, the Battle of Vicksburg was already underway, says Eric Rojo, a retired U.S. Army colonel and commander-in-chief of the Military Order of the Loyal Legion of the United States, which is an organization composed of descendants of Union officers in the Civil War. Now, Eric Rojo points out that the Battle of Gettysburg was about to begin and that Union victories were, quote, signaling the beginning of the end. Union victories were signaling the beginning of the end for the Confederacy. Quote, even if French were able to set their supply lines by mid-1863, it would have made very little difference in the outcome of the Civil War. It would have made very little difference in the outcome of the Civil War. Now, why we celebrate Cinco de Mayo in the United States? The critical timing of the French defeat at the Battle of Puebla, May 5th, 1862, was not lost on Mexican Americans and other Latinos living in California, many who had flocked to the state during the gold rush. David Hayes Bautista, director of the Center for the Study of Latino Health and Culture at the UCLA School of Medicine, was looking up the birth and death records in 19th century Spanish speaking newspapers when he found news reports of their very first celebrations of Cinco de Mayo as early as 1862. Okay, Hayes Bautista says California Latinos were ardent Union supporters, okay, the North, the Union in the United States. When their home countries won independence from Spain, they had unilaterally abolished slavery and established citizenship for non-whites. Now living in California, a free state, California enters the Union as a free state in 1850. Okay, they saw the pro-slavery Confederacy as an existential threat. They saw the pro-slavery Confederacy, the Confederate States of America, as an existential threat because Mexico was anti-slavery. Mexico had abolished slavery in 1829 when Vicente Guerrero, who's of African descent and a former slave, became president. Okay, and if we look at this article here from face-to-faceafrica.com, the first, let's close out these ads here. Okay, with all these ads, all this stuff. Okay, the first black president of Mexico, let's pull this up here. This one here from face-to-faceafrica.com. The first black president of Mexico whose execution shocked the nation. This is Vicente Guerrero. Okay, he was a former slave. He's a Afro-Mexican, a former slave of African descent. And when black leader Vicente Guerrero campaigned for president in 1828, sources say he had to fight lighter-skinned Mexican elite that was bent on maintaining a system of white supremacy in Mexico, because they were conquered by Spain. So some of them had a colonized European mentality and sided with Spain and wanted to have a caste system, okay, and had that colonial mentality. Even before he could abolish slavery, he had to face a Spanish invasion. There was another hurdle. Despite Mexico fighting against Spain for independence in the early 18th century, Vicente Guerrero had to deal with some influential Mexicans who looked down on him, having Afro-Indio roots and for being a mule driver by trade. A descendant of the about 250,000 Africans brought to Mexico during colonial times, Vicente Guerrero was born on August 9, 1783 in Tixla, now the state of Guerrero in Mexico, to a humble family. Okay, so let's skip over this here. 1590. By 1646, the numbers had increased to 116,529 for Afro-Mexicans and 35,089 for Africans. Okay, they're looking at a 1595 census showed that Afro-Mexicans outnumbered Spanish and mestizos. Mestizos were persons of indigenous and Spanish mixed descent. Okay, but this is in urban towns. A 1595 census showed that Afro-Mexicans outnumbered Spanish and mestizos in urban towns. Now, Vicente Guerrero, let's see, 1823. All right. In 1828, Vicente Guerrero and Ignacio Esteva created the first People's Party in Mexico, and its followers put Guerrero in the presidency in April 1829. In 1829, Vicente Guerrero became the second president of Mexico and went on to, quote, champion the cause not only of the racially oppressed, but also the economically oppressed. In September of 1829, Vicente Guerrero formally abolished slavery in Mexico many years before Abraham Lincoln of the United States. Okay, so read the rest of this article here from face-to-faceafrica.com. The first black president of Mexico whose execution shocked the nation. This is from January 1st, 2020 by Mildred Europa Taylor for face-to-faceafrica.com. Now, okay, we got that and that right there. Let's go back to this one here. Okay, that one. I want to go back to this one here quickly, dealing with the Civil War and Cinco de Mayo. Okay, once again, this piece is how Cinco de Mayo helped prevent a Confederate victory in the Civil War. Okay, so they talk about why we celebrate Cinco de Mayo. They break that down. Read the rest of that. And let me see. Look at my notes here. Here in Los Angeles. We know that. Okay, let's go to the last paragraph here. We know how the Civil War ended, but how did things work out for the French in Mexico? How did things work out for the French in Mexico? In 1864, Napoleon installed the Archduke Ferdinand Maximilian of Austria as the Emperor of Mexico. When the Civil War ended in 1865, when the Civil War ended in 1865, Lincoln made it clear that he opposed the French occupation of America's southern neighbor. Napoleon III, a nephew of Napoleon Bonaparte, Napoleon III responded by withdrawing his troops, but leaving behind Maximilian, who was captured and executed in 1867. Okay, so read the rest of this piece here from history.com, official website of the History Channel, how Cinco de Mayo helped prevent a Confederate victory in the U.S. Civil War. All right. So that's going to do it for us here. I'll be on Roland Martin Unfiltered on Friday. They were just emailing me, his producer. I'll be on Roland Martin Unfiltered on Friday. So check that out. Download the Black Star Media app to your devices and follow Roland on Facebook and YouTube. Roland Martin on Facebook and YouTube. And let me see here. We've got, be sure to visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. So if you like the type of history that I laid out here today, be sure to register for the online history classes I teach on Saturdays and Sundays, okay? Because we get deep into this information. On Saturdays, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. From the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. And on Sundays, that's on Sundays. On Saturdays, ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. We deal with thousands of years of history and what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. I do a PowerPoint presentation. We have book references, articles, video clips. We get deep into this history. You can use this information with your children. They can take the class. I would say the information is PG-13. I don't do a lot of cursing. It's not vulgar. We do a PowerPoint presentation, book references, articles, video clips. It's very visual. We do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. You can go back and watch it anytime. Okay. A year from now, 2 years from now, you still have full access to the class. You can go back and watch it. Okay. Then on Sundays, from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968, we start in 1803 with the Louisiana Purchase of 1803 and the Haitian Revolution. We deal with the Mexican-American War, so we get deep into all this history. We go through and do a chronology of history, see what leads up to the Civil War taking place. And then we deal with Reconstruction, 1865, 1877, Jim Crow era, World War I, World War II, Great Migration, Civil Rights Movement, and Black Power Movement. All right. And we have a bundle pack where you can register for all three online classes I teach for $120. It's a $260 value. Okay. And we have all that at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com also. Let me see. We'll post this right here. So class number one from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968, starts up Sunday, May 8th, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. With both of these classes, as soon as you register, there's bonus content that you can start watching right away. All right. And then we have the new documentary from director Amadeus Christ, Heavy is the Crown. Okay, Heavy is the Crown. And this deals with the African origins of the major religions. It's $25. You get a bonus lecture from me when you buy this exclusive offer from the African History Network. But we also have a bundle pack that is $120. It's like a $180 value. We have a bundle pack, and I'll post a link here, that has you'll get Heavy is the Crown. You'll get some of my lectures, and you'll also get enrolled in the 10-week online class, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, where they didn't teach you in school. And we deal with some of the origins of Christianity in that course also. Okay. So let me post the link here to the bundle pack. Here we go, right here. And that bundle pack is $120, exclusive offer from the African History Network. Here is the trailer for Heavy is the Crown, and the documentary features Professor Kabahai Watha Kamene, Professor James Small, Tony Browder, and others are in the documentary. Let me pull this up here. Where do we have it? I think this is it right here. Just a second. Okay, here is the crown. Let's go to this here. Okay, let's get past this ad. All right.
Everybody has a story of how this became what it is.
And all of the stories that we're experiencing up to date are all based on the original mythological story.
Myths are ways of codifying profound truths. And so, in order to have some knowledge of these things, our ancestors began to put them in the form of stories. Because myth becomes a way of speaking to them.
And it's only mythology because it is based on a belief.
And then we create rituals that reinforces the logic and the knowledge of the myth.
The story that goes into a ceremony that is constantly going to allow.
That's when myths come in. When we begin to practice this, what they call the Syrian drama.
The story is has been treated.
It's over 6,000 years old.
There's several different pieces of that story that are in correlation to the story of Jesus.
Scholars know this. Why do they allow people keep thinking it's a religion unless they have an untoward religion? And it's very clear that they've created a lot of confusion.
All right, that's the trailer for Heavy is the Crown. Just came out April 22nd, 2022. It's available right now at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Look, we have to get out of here. Let me see. Was it one of the things we got that? Okay, I told you I would show you this here. This is where Columbus went on his 4 voyages. Then we're going to get out of here. Let me go to this here. And this is from my online class also, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Let me go through this because we have over 200 slides in the class. So let's look at this here. Where are we? Right here. Got this. Okay. So, and we know Columbus set sail August 3rd, 1492. This was later in the same year that the Moors lose control of the last stronghold, Granada, January 2nd, 1492. So Columbus never comes to the land we call the United States of America. He goes on 4 voyages. August 3rd, 1492, he sets sail on Nina the Pinta de Santa Maria. He goes into the Bahamas, which he calls San Salvador. He goes into Cuba and Hispaniola, La Isla Española, the Spanish island. Okay. And the western third of Hispaniola is where Haiti is, Santo Domingo or Saint Dominique. September 1493, he goes into the West Indies and Boricuan, which is Puerto Rico, and also 1494 in Jamaica. Okay, he conquers Jamaica. Where is that? I want the piece from. Hold on, where is that from? I was looking for a piece from Encyclopedia Britannica. Oh, this right here. So it was, La Isla Española, the Spanish island. Okay, and it's originally called Quesaquea by the Taino. The third voyage, May 1498, Trinidad and the Venezuelan mainland in South America. And 4th voyage, last voyage, 1504, Panama and Honduras. Okay. So all this was conquered by Columbus, all this conquered by Spain on behalf of the Spanish crown, King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella. Okay, so we deal with all that in the class Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. All All right, look, we have to get out of here. Remember, the African History Network, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right now, let's correct your own behavior. And also, if you like this type of information, you can support the African History Network, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN Show. All right.